Now, let's begin by telling you that Chieftain of Afenifere, Ayodele Adebanjo, has died. The elder statesman died at the age of 96, just 2 months shy of his 97th birthday. Adebanjo died on Friday morning at his residence in Lekki, Lagos State. The family confirmed the death in a statement and disclosed that consultations were ongoing with Adebanjo's friends, associates, and various interest groups across the country and beyond to finalize plans for a befitting funeral. They said details of the funeral arrangements will be announced in due course. News Central's Igbalani Omoni visited the Lekki residence of the Adebanjos and reports that a condolence register has been opened. He also spoke to Segun Ayo Adebanjo, a son of the deceased.
Well, personally, this is obviously you only lose your father one time, so this is a very unique experience for me. It's really painful. I mean, he lived a great life. He was 96. There's very little I could ask for in terms of preserving your parents. So I am thankful, but it's still a very painful loss. Well, obviously he left very big shoes to fill, and he was himself trying to fill even bigger shoes in the legacy of Chief Registrar. I think that was his lodestar, his guidepost in terms of he always said he wanted to be able to give good account to Chief Registrar at that time when they finally did that. He maintained their principles and their values. And that was his life course. He was in this right from his youth days as a youth leader. So the betterment of Nigeria was basically his life course beyond anything else, and up to the very last days of his life. He's everyone's father, so it's not a case of just his children trying to follow his footpath, the principles and things he stood for. So I think, yeah, there are definitely a lot of people that will come across, follow up, and try and maintain that. So, I mean, we can all see the way the world is going. We pretty much don't have any choice. We have to make this happen in terms of people have to stand up and try and make sure that the, as I say, the heroes of or the struggles of our heroes past shall not be in vain.
And now our correspondent Igbalani Omoni joins us from the residence of the deceased. Ni, thank you very much for joining us this evening on the news. As you're at the residence of the late Adebanjo, would like to know what the ambience has been like since you have been there, if you don't mind.
Well, Mazino, I can tell you for a fact what you would expect of a residence that has just been bereaved. Of course, everywhere it's a little bit gloomy. Took a step inside earlier, and everyone is just sitting there trying to pay their condolence visit. Right behind me here, you can see a condolence register has been opened. As at the time we got here about 2 hours ago, just 6 or 7 people had filled the register. You know, the news just broke a few hours back, and just as you can even see behind me, some people are still trickling in, trying to fill the register, going in, paying their respect to the family of the bereaved. And a lot of things have also happened during the course of our stay here. We saw Emeka Anyoku, the former Secretary General of the Commonwealth. He was here, and I think he's still in there as of now. We tried to speak with him, but he said when he come out. We also saw the PDP chieftain, Chief Bode George also. He just came in. We were hoping to also catch his view. And I just want to quote one thing his son said earlier, which is Mr. Segun Ayo Adebanjo. He mentioned that one of the legacies of Pa Ayo Adebanjo is that he mentioned that he wanted to give account of his stewardship to Chief Obafemi Awolowo once he sees him. And now that he has passed the great beyond, at least the opportunity will be there. And that has informed his legacy over time on saying, oh, he speaks for truth, he speaks for fairness, he speaks for justice, and these are what and the things he stands for. His son also mentioned that these are big shoes to fill in Nigeria. Yes, he mentioned also that there are people who they hope will stand up and speak for the right of Nigerians, but as Baba has passed, other people hopefully will do the same thing Baba has done to make sure that Nigeria is great again. But for now, we're still expecting more dignitaries to come in. As I said, the news broke just a few hours ago. So we're still expecting more dignitaries to come in, and anyone else we can capture just to hear their thought and speak about Pa Ayo Adebanjo's legacy.
Being a chieftain of the Afenifere group, I was wondering if the Afenifere members have also visited the residents to pay their respects.
Well, we've not been able to see, we've not seen any that have identified themselves or the ones we can identify yet. But I'm sure, as I said earlier, it's just a few hours ago the news broke, although we heard rumors on the ground mentioned that Baba passed on in the wee hours of today. But of course, the news just got to the media when the family released a statement about 2 to 3 hours ago. So I'm sure they're still going to find their way here. And once we have them, we're able to hear their own view on what is the next step for the Afenifere group, which has been a very vocal group as regards fighting for the rights of the indigenes of Yoruba, fighting for the rights of Nigerians, and fighting for the rights of every good citizens of Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much, Nee, and we might come back to you for more detail about what's happening there. But thank you very much for bringing us this from the spot. Thank you.
Having me.
We move on now to security matters. U.S. Congressman Scott Perry has accused U.S. aid agency, United States Agency for International Development, of funding terrorist organizations, including Boko Haram. Perry, a Republican representing Pennsylvania, made the claim during the inaugural hearing of the Subcommittee on Delivering on Government Efficiency. Perry further cited USAID's reported fund of $136 million for building 120 schools in Pakistan, alleging that there was zero evidence of the school's construction. U.S. President Donald Trump has previously called for the closure of USAID, accusing the agency of corruption in a post on his Truth Social platform. The move is part of Trump's drive to shrink the U.S. government. Now, here are a few things to note about the agency. USAID is the main U.S. agency that provides foreign aid. Its works include humanitarian aid, economic development, and education. It was established by President John F. Kennedy in 1961 to combine several foreign aid programs and organizations. USAID has missions in over 100 countries, mainly in Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. And USAID is one of the world's largest official aid agencies. In Nigeria, USAID's work spans across agriculture, food security, democracy, human rights, governance, economic growth, trade, education, global health, water, and sanitation. Melissa Jones is the USAID Nigeria Missions Director.
Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this...
Now, the Department of State Service, the DSS, says communities play a crucial role in securing themselves against criminal elements, adding that they must serve as the first line of defense. It specifically stated that it was impossible for all the security agencies to protect all Nigerians across nooks and crannies of the country. Oluwatosin Ajayi, the Director General of the Secret Police, stated this in Abuja when he spoke at the maiden annual lecture of the National Association of the Institute for Security Studies. The lecture had top echelons from the military, police, and other paramilitary agencies in attendance. The DSS boss recounted historical instances where communities successfully defended themselves against insurgents, particularly in Azare and Tafawa Balewa in Bauchi State. And to discuss both security stories, We're joined by former Director, Department of State Service, Dennis Amakri. Mr. Dennis, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Good to have you here. So, to go straight to it, this is not the first time aid agencies are being accused of complicity in crimes in Africa. But coming from a U.S. congressman who is a combat veteran, would you say it's high time African nations scrutinize the interventions of agencies?
Thank you very much for this particular question. You see, we have been having or collecting aids from these different countries. And then over the years, it has gone so far that many people really don't think that America or any other country will just give you aid in nothing in return. It's not because they love you so much or they are feeling so sorry about you that they will be giving aids, you know. The primary objective, of course, is humanitarian. They will use places like the United USAID to do humanitarian work, but under the humanitarian workers, they have what they call the illegal residents. Illegal residents are actually CIA agents who work in these different agencies as either professional doctors or professional, agriculturists or whatever, but their major objective is to carry out the national interest of the United States.
So, assuming without conceding that the allegation is true, how does Nigeria go about recovering the Miranda of losses incurred by combating Boko Haram now?
How are you going to recover it? You're not going to recover it. The only thing is that we have to learn. We have to learn seriously, and I'm happy that these revelations are coming out right now because maybe some people were even gaining from it, because the funds that are being given to USAID are not just for agriculture or medical care or whatever. Some people are actually gaining from it. Some agents of the United States or other agencies are there, Red Cross, they are all in there carrying out different objectives which are contrary to the national objectives of Nigeria. So we can tell from what has happened in other areas like Cuba, Nicaragua, Afghanistan, Venezuela, even in 2019, where the government was toppled. And they used this to topple governments. And I think it's high time Nigerian or African governments start realizing that, in fact, nobody is going to give you handouts. Most of them are there to collect the natural minerals that exist in Africa, and any government that does not support, what they are trying to do will be toppled. And it has happened. Patrice Lumumba in Congo, Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, Gaddafi in Libya. So these are all things that, and I'm happy that Congressman Scott Perry is coming up with all these revelations now.
Now, Mr. Makri, let's talk about the DSS asking northern communities to be the first line of defense and giving samples from the past. Now, first of all, I want to ask you, as former director yourself, how did that information meet you?
Well, I'm so very happy because we'll be projecting this particular objective that people should be involved. People should be involved. It's not a fight for the security agencies where, like I always make this analogy, where it's like people in a stadium watching a football match. The Nigerians are all seated, and then of course the security agencies are fighting with the bandits and terrorists, and then of course Nigerians are busy counting, or even the media. The media is counting, they've killed 10 Nigerian soldiers, or Nigerian soldiers have killed 20 terrorists. So it is this 2-1, 3-1 business, and everybody is clapping and sitting down on the fence. We would want every Nigerian to get involved, because this is a war against the country. And of course, just like the DGSSS have said, the communities should be out there fighting them as the first line of defense. Because when you look at it, in fact, I was very impressed with one lady, in Borno State, who was really, really out there fighting the bandits. They are scared to hear her name. I think Aisha or somebody like that. And she's, a bandit herself who was fighting the bandits and Boko Haram. So I think it's high time that we have to own up. As the first line of defense, the communities have to start, But again, somebody will ask, how do we fund these people? Or how do we empower them? Because if bandits are carrying guns, how about the locals? The locals who are going to fight them should also be carrying some kind of defense. And I think those are the things that the DGSSS and others will work out, because we need the local people there to also help the effort.
Oh, Mr. Makri, I think you've just encapsulated all of the questions I was going to ask in that response there. So I guess I'd like to say thank you very much for your contribution here on these two stories. Thank you very much, Mr. Makri.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, sir. Let's go on a short break now, and when we get back, CBN to sanction banks with ATM withdrawals limits below 20,000 naira. Details of this and more after the break. Join us then. Now, the Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education has accused the All Progressive Congress of using the proposed creation of 31 new states as a political strategy to deceive Nigerians ahead of the 2027 general elections. It described the move as a grand deception and distraction orchestrated by the ruling party to divert attention from the country's worsening economic and security crisis. Briefing journalists in Abuja, the CHISED's Executive Director, Ibrahim Zikirulahi, claimed that the APC was using state creation as a bait to win support ahead of 2027, knowing fully well that the proposal is unrealistic.
It is particularly alarming that federal lawmakers have chosen to focus their efforts on increasing the number of states rather than addressing the urgent economic and social issues facing the nation. This decision raises questions about the priorities of those in power and whether they are truly in touch with the realities of the lives of ordinary Nigerians. The current economic climate has left many citizens struggling to make ends meet, and the government's focus on state creations seems to divert attention from the pressing need for effective governance and policy reforms.
So to discuss this, we are joined by public affairs analyst Moses Idika. Mr. Moses Idika, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, what are the potential political implications of creating new states, including the impact on the balance of power and representation in the National Assembly?
Okay, let me take it from your last point. Certain zones in Nigeria have been agitating, especially the Southeast, have been agitating for a creation of one more state to put them at par with some other regions, because it is only the Southeast that has 5 states, the minimum number of states across the 6 geopolitical zones. That said, I tend to agree with the civil society organization, because recently we heard that several members of the House of Representatives pushed up bills amounting to 31 requests for creation of new states across some states. A state like Benue has 3 proposals, while in the Southeast you have 2 proposals. You have from the Northwest and practically all the 6 geopolitical zones. yes, it looks like a distraction on the surface, but I rather think in my own thinking that it's more like trying to sabotage the agitation in the Southeast. That is, agitating for a creation of additional one single state to put them at par with some other geopolitical zones. So when a particular region is agitating for one state, you now see some states in some other regions as agitating for 3 additional states. So that confuses everybody and, kind of downplays the critical agitation coming from the Southeast. However, when you look at it from the other hand, you find out that several minority groups in all the regions, they have their issues. Everybody is claiming they are being marginalized. For example, we know the case of Benue State. The people from southern part of Benue State have said they are being marginalized because in Nigeria, winner takes it all. You find out that before now, we've been hearing that the President Tinubu's government is favoring people of the Southwest. When Buhari was there, it was as if it was for the North. And so that is the root cause of all these agitations. Assuming that Nigeria is a country governed by its own laws, then everybody, the government will be blind to regions and number of states. If you are hungry, you can be hungry in Borno State, you can be hungry in Ebonyi State, you can be hungry in Lagos State. But if you also live well, you can live well in any part of Nigeria.
Sorry, Moses.
So the real
Moses.
Yeah?
If you do want to explain exactly, because it's a bit confusing here, how would the creation of new states affect the economic development and resource allocation in Nigeria generally?
Well, for me, I don't think that creating new states will affect the resource distribution. What affects Nigeria's resource distribution is the fact that our resources are not deployed to service the people, to service the communities, to service the states. Nigeria resources are diverted. You hear that Nigerians have the high number of houses in Dubai. People are buying houses in London, in New York, in Canada, and that is what is affecting the resources of Nigeria, not even the number of states. In my thinking, there is no state in Nigeria that cannot take care of itself. And what are we talking about taking care of ourselves? Provision of basic needs, provision of health facilities, education, pay workers, create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. So the government has failed in all these areas, and the resources are diverted to private pockets. If you live in Abuja, Abuja has the highest number of mansions in Nigeria today, and most of those mansions are empty because nobody lives there. The average Nigerian cannot afford to even live there on rent. So that is what affects the resources, not even the number of local governments or states.
But for most of Nigerian states, you'd realize that the local government areas might get all of these allocations and might utilize it in some of these urban areas or close to suburban areas. All the rest LGAs may not get these funds distributed to them. Could that be the reason why they're agitating for more states? If they can carve out these LGAs, perhaps make them states on their own, they could get these allocations that would benefit the people that live in these smaller regions.
It's a misplaced agitation on the part of some of those lawmakers. You find out that these lawmakers, you have never seen any of them taking their governors to task about their allocations, about their internally generated revenues. Nobody calls out their local government chairman that we got so amount of money this month. How was the money deployed? So until we begin to demand accountability from public office holders, that is when we can have our resources deployed to service the people. When people link lack of development to number of states, and you find out it's unsubstantiated. When you go back to a lot of the rural areas, the roads you see, the bridges you see, were built in the 70s when we had less than 10 states, or even in the 60s. So how come now that we have 36 states, there are no new roads? Even the one built in the 60s and 70s have all dilapidated and unmotorable. So it is not the number of states, it's not the number of local government, it is application of resources, misapplication of resources now that is at the root of the crisis we face as a nation today.
Moses Siddiq, I want to say thank you very much for joining us this hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. And now more news. Kabir Akanbi has been appointed the Acting Chief Registrar of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Kudirat Kekere-Ekun, approved the appointment. This was contained in a press statement issued on Friday by the Deputy Director of Information and Public Relations of the Supreme Court, Ahmed Umar. According to the statement, Akanbi's appointment takes effect from February 13, 2025. Akanbi's emergence follows the retirement of Hajo Sarki Bello, who attained the mandatory retirement age of 60 years. And now to a bit of business. The Central Bank of Nigeria has threatened to sanction banks that limit automated teller machines withdrawals to less than 20,000 naira per transaction. The Apex Bank disclosed this in a document addressing concerns over the reviewed fees on ATM withdrawal. Recall that CBN on Tuesday increased ATM transactions withdrawal fees, saying from March 1st, bank customers will pay 100 naira charge for every 20,000 naira withdrawal from the on-site ATM of other banks. Security operatives at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, apprehended 3 unruly passengers aboard an Air Peace flight from London after they engaged in disruptive behavior that endangered the safety of the flight and its passengers and crew. The incident occurred during the flight when 2 of the individuals identified as Adedigba, Adewale, and Oshigbogu Magnus, who were originally seated in economy class, unlawfully occupied seats in a business class cabin and refused multiple directives from the crew to return to their assigned seats. Despite efforts to de-escalate the situation, the passengers remained defiant, creating a tense atmosphere on board. Now, Nigeria's National Petroleum Company Limited says that it is partnering with the nation's northern film industry, also known as Kannywood, to help champion its campaign against pipeline vandalism. The NNPC Limited, while meeting with industry players from the industry in Abuja, says that pipeline vandalism has reached an all-time high, thus the need for a more pragmatic approach to tackling it. Here, Amadine Uyi tells us more.
Kannywood, an informal name for the Hausa language cinema, is the film industry of northern Nigeria with its headquarters based in Kano State. With the reach of Kannywood penetrating across not just 19 states of Nigeria's northern region, but across several countries in Africa, its importance as a formidable partner in effective information dissemination cannot be overemphasized. With this in mind, Nigeria's National Petroleum Company Limited is extending a hand of fellowship to players in the industry to support its enlightenment campaign against oil theft and pipeline vandalism.
Kannywood plays a vital role in shaping the opinion of the people, especially in the northern part of our great country, Nigeria. The NNPC Limited belongs to all Nigerians, as you are aware, including members of the Kannywood. So it is crucial for the Kannywood community to have an interest in knowing how we run our businesses and operations. It is in this role as a commercial entity that NNPC Limited deems it necessary to hold this engagement so as to share ideas on how to move the nation's oil and gas industry forward.
Kannywood is one of the very veritable stakeholders in the North, the entertainment industry, and they have a lot of followership. So for whatever you do, Kannywood is one of the key things when you want to reach the northern, the 3 geopolitical zones in the North.
The NNPC Limited says challenges affecting oil infrastructure has reached an all-time high.
As of today, we discovered over 6,000 illegal connections on our major pipeline system. Each of these illegal connections is stealing crude oil.
The NNPC Limited says that it is hoping that this partnership can help extend its enlightenment campaign across the north, reaching millions of citizens under dangers of vandalizing their nation's oil assets. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
The Kano State government says that it will prioritize management courses for girls in the state as part of their educational curriculum, especially in secondary schools. This was made known by the Senior Special Advisor to the Governor on Girl-Child Education, as she called on school administrators in the state to encourage female students' enrollment, especially into management courses. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu here reports.
These education stakeholders in Kano State have expressed concerns over the teaching of home economics for female students in secondary schools comprising of home management, clothing and textile, food and nutrition, amongst others.
We realize these subjects, despite their importance, are declining in our senior secondary schools for girls precisely. And they are too important to be abandoned. And that is why we bring all of them here to orient them and remind them on the importance of this subject so they can go back to their schools and encourage their girls to, especially food and nutrition. One thing we realized is all girls that are in science classes, if they do not enroll in this subject, food and nutrition, they are not going to get admission in medical school, whether it be it nursing, be it medicine or whatever.
They say the teaching of the subject and its related courses are important for the proper upbringing of the child. They also add that the state government will prioritize the enrollment and teaching of the courses and is deploying tracking mechanisms to ensure that schools in the state comply with its set objectives.
We're going to continue with monitoring and evaluation to ensure that this subject, core subjects are home management, food and nutrition, and others, those that people learn skills in them.
Because to relieve the economic stress, you are talking up to manage economic stress. So when you involve men or boys, there is no problem on that.
Kano, known as a rather conservative state, the move by the government aligns with its objectives and ideals being pursued. In Kano for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Journalists for Christ Nigeria, an association of Christian journalists and allied professionals, have released its latest social media monitoring report on misogyny and tech-facilitated gender-based violence in Nigeria. The report highlights the growing trend of online violence against women, particularly on social media platforms where harmful narratives, cyberbullying and other forms of digital abuse disproportionately affect Nigerian women. Here News Central's correspondent Bettina Nweli reports.
According to the findings, the increasing accessibility of digital platforms has amplified gender-based discrimination, harassment, and threats, often targeting female journalists, activists, and public figures. JFC Nigeria emphasizes the urgent need for stricter policies, digital literacy campaigns, and stronger enforcement of existing laws to protect women from online abuse.
So what we did was that we had volunteers that did the gender monitoring online, and they actually look at misogynistic statements against women, and we are shocked that it was actually on the increase. These women, many women, they have the potential to do great things in life, to contribute to the society, but because of this misogyny, many do not have the willpower to go on. Many already have suicidal thoughts, many are depressed, many are psychologically down, and they face a lot of stereotypes.
Tech-facilitated gender-based violence, TFGBV, is the form of gender-based violence which is predominantly carried out online on digital spaces and platforms. It can be described as targeted harassment and prejudice against women through technology-based online channels or platforms. Though TFGBV is derived from gender-based violence, it differs and is perpetrated through electronic means and include unwanted sexual remarks, non-consensual posting of sexual images or videos, amongst others.
Majorly, we're able to confirm that tech-facilitated gender-based violence is on the rise. it affects a cross-section of the society, both the elites and other classes of people. We're able to establish that between Facebook and Twitter, those are some of the prominent platforms that people use to attack people unjustly. We can move forward when we are aware that what we are doing is not right. We realize that some of those people doing it, they didn't know that what they are doing is wrong. Some people are catching fun, some people are looking for traffic. So the first thing is to let people know this is happening, let's do something about it. And we're also telling people, when you see this kind of a thing, do something. Don't move on. Don't say it's not you. It could be somebody else tomorrow. So when somebody comes online and attacks somebody, add your voice.
The initiative of this research is to foster the imperatives of mitigating misogyny, TFGBV, and related harmful and discriminatory practices against girls and women within the online space in Nigeria. In Lagos, for News Central, I am Bettina Nwili.
Now, Valentine's Day is traditionally about love, but for businesses, it's a goldmine. Simple gestures have been replaced by expensive gifts, fine dining, and grand surprises, making it one of the most commercialized holidays, generating billions globally. Now, News Central's business correspondent Chanum Debeng has more.
This celebration is a day to express love and affection in unique and creative ways. The color of the day is always red to depict the celebration. It is generally believed that Valentine's Day is named after Saint Valentine, a Christian martyr. Meanwhile, the origin of Valentine's Day centers around a Roman priest named Valentine, who lived during the reign of Emperor Claudius II in the 3rd century. It is said that Claudius believed that single men made better soldiers than those with wives and families. Hence, a decree was made against young men getting married.
So this Reverend Father Valentine was preaching marital love to the soldiers in secret. And those who wanted to get married, he was wedding them secretly in caves and under the tree in the bush. Well, you know, public open secret soon becomes a news. The story went that Valentine was encouraging the soldiers to disobey the emperor. So he was arrested and subsequently he was martyred. Now, symbolically, he now stood for love. Not love as in boyfriend, girlfriend, and immoral love and all that, no. Pure love, marital love. That is the background history.
Today, Valentine's Day is observed around the world as a time to show love, not only to romantic partners, but also to friends and family.
However, on Valentine's Day, people are reminded of the value of love, especially for couples. They are reminded of their marital vows to love each other and to live within the bounds of love.
Unfortunately, Valentine's Day is often marked by unrealistic expectations, and the pressure to meet these expectations, no doubt, can have implications on people.
I call on the church, including myself, that all of us will now have to change the orientation of our young ones who think that it's a time to look for boyfriend and girlfriend and then commit illicit sex. That is not the reason for it. So I encourage us all Christians to give the actual meaning of the love that is to be emphasized on Valentine's Day.
Some respondents identify the fear of not living up to an expectation in terms of gifts, gestures, or affection can trigger heightened stress and worry. Suggest how the day should be celebrated.
When we also talk about Valentine's Day, it's also a day for us to have a retrospect on what we can give towards the betterment of the society.
The husband and wife should be prayerful. They should pray. Even if they are going out to enjoy themselves, let them be at home to enjoy themselves together.
Right. So today, Valentine is teaching us to share love with people
without expecting anything in return. And that is the agape kind of love that we're supposed to celebrate today.
Valentine's Day does not have to be just about romantic love or loving those dear to you, but spread love through small acts of kindness. In Asaba for News Central, I'm Austin Azu.
Correction there, that's brought by Austin Azu in Delta State. Thank you very much, Austin. Welcome back. Now, M23 fighters and Rwandan troops seized the airport serving Bukavu, the capital of South Kivu province in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo on Friday. The strategic site where Congolese troops had been positioned is the last military obstacle to the anti-government force before the city of 1 million people some 30 kilometers away. The development came as leaders gathered for an African Union summit, including talks on the escalating violence in the region that have sparked fears of a wider conflict. M23 fighters seized Goma, the provincial capital of North Kivu, in a lightning offensive in late January and have since pushed south towards Goma. In business, Nigerian lawmakers have approved a 2025 budget of 54.99 trillion naira, surpassing President Bola Tinubu's proposal. The budget prioritizes security, infrastructure, and living cost while addressing the U.S. aid suspension to Nigeria's health sector amid ongoing economic reforms and a projected budget deficit of 1.52% of GDP. Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Kari Asset Management Limited, head of fixed income, he shared his insight as to whether we have the right mechanism to ensure that we make appropriate use of the increased budget.
If you want to have the elections on the ballpark figures, you will be you'll be speaking from an uninformed position. I personally need to see a breakdown of what those statutory files will be deployed. The National Assembly will now need to interrogate their budget to see what they are spending money on. It's only when you interrogate the different details, when you dive deep or do a deep dive into the breakdown of those expenditures, you can question or accept the importance or the necessity for those amounts. So, but what matters to me is at this point is the ballpark figures. One is that can we really generate revenues of region of about 40 trillion?
And now sports. The Lagos State Handball Association, in partnership with US-based handball star Ebie Udo Udoma, organized a two-day handball clinic at Rowe Park, Yaba from the 13th to 14th of February. The program aimed to develop young talent and strengthen grassroots handball in Nigeria. Participants received technical training and mentorship from Udo Udoma and local coaches who emphasized the importance of grassroots development. Nigeria's women under-18 handball team coach Agbola Shitu and chairperson of the Lagos State Handball Association Adiola Olaifa acknowledged challenges such as inadequate facilities and limited funding, but encouraged grassroots events like this. Udo Udoma plans to take this clinic to other states in the country in the future following the success of this.
In Lagos and in working with Handball Federation Nigeria, if it's a success, it's something that we can potentially run in other cities throughout Nigeria. It's a step in the right direction. It's great, especially when you see a youth team or a junior team win international competition, because it's not just something that's good for that group of athletes, it's something that inspires the athletes who are younger than them, be able to look up at their own countrymen, succeed international. And that's also why I wanted to run a clinic like this as somebody who's played for Team USA for 10 years, just so the kids have an example that Nigeria has proficient handball players, and hopefully that inspires more Nigerians that are youth to take up the sport and to dedicate themselves to be the best that they can within it.
The trial of former Spanish football chief Luis Rubiales over his controversial kiss on Jenny Hermoso concluded Friday, with a verdict expected in weeks. Rubiales faces charges of sexual assault and coercion for kissing Hermoso after Spain's 2023 Women's World Cup victory and allegedly pressuring her to downplay the incident. Prosecutors seek a 2.5-year prison sentence for Rubiales, while 3 others, including ex-coach Jorge Velda, face 18 months for coercion. Hermoso testified that the kiss was non-consensual, while Rubiales insists she agreed. The scandal, which highlights sexism in sports, led to Rubiales' resignation after FIFA suspended him. And that's all for this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Chieftain of Afenifere Ayodele Adebanjo has passed on at 96. And CBN is set to sanction banks with ATM withdrawal limits below 20,000 naira. We also told you that M23 Rwandan troops have seized Bukavu, or rather Bukavu, yes, airport in eastern DR Congo. Now you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Sound Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.